Hi, welcome to the next part of our module on data cleaning. And before we jump into the nuts and bolts of exactly how to clean your data in Excel and Tableau, let me tell you a couple of reasons why this investment in time and effort is really worth it on your part. You might know the story of the Mars orbiter, which was a spaceship that NASA sent up to space in the late 1990s. And it was a very expensive, very sophisticated piece of machinery that was going to collect very valuable information about the planet Mars and send it back to us to help us plan and do good science. And just as the Mars orbiter was reaching its destination and sending back the valuable information, the ground control lost contact with the spaceship and actually never recovered it. It was lost to us, and in the post-analysis, it was discovered that the reason that the spaceship was lost is that part of the spaceship was calculating in pounds, and part of the spaceship was calculating in newtons, which is a different unit of measurement. And so it was a fundamental data cleaning error that caused this very expensive, very important piece of machinery to be lost to us forever. A less public example comes from some of my on-the-ground work in Bangladesh. You may have heard in the news that there was a number of different labor issues going on in Bangladesh and working condition issues. And we were doing some work there trying to understand how different groups of people were working together in Bangladesh. And this is an example of how that data was being collected. The people we were collecting the data from were not necessarily all literate, so we were collecting data in the form of pictures. And when it came time to get that data into spreadsheets and spend some time cleaning that data, some of it just didn't match up. We had one variable called gender composition of the group. So these groups of people some of them were all male groups, some of them were all female groups, and some of them were mixed, men and women. And then we also had a roster of who belonged to each group. So when we looked at the groups and calculated using the roster of group memberships what percentage of the group was male and what percentage of the group was female, and then we compared that with their classification under this variable called group gender, which was male, female, or mixed, it didn't match up. We had groups that were classified as female that had 20% men in them and similar dissimilarities. So we had to go back to our original kind of raw data and realize that in the variable that got translated as group gender composition, that wasn't actually a numerical assessment of the gender composition. It was the group's opinion of who in the group was doing the most work. So if we hadn't cleaned the data and cross-checked those two variables that should have said the same thing to see if they in fact said the same thing, we never would have known, and we would have misclassified a huge number of groups in an inappropriate way and come to written a series of stories that were not a good reflection at all of what was happening on the ground. So cleaning your data, although it can be a bit of an investment, is an excellent investment and can actually be really fun because you can take this time to think about each one of your variables, each piece of data that you have, and try and decide when you're going to put this in a story, is this going to be the protagonist in your story? Is this going to be the antagonist in your story? Is this going to be sort of a minor subplot in your story? Relate to each one of these variables as you go about cleaning them and ask yourself, what role is this variable probably going to play in my story? Is this a plot twist variable? Is this variable going to change the trend that I'm looking at? Or is this variable going to be the protagonist and it's actually the variable that we're going to follow like a character through the story? So take this time to really enjoy your data and get to know it. While you're enjoying your data and cleaning your data, make sure that you keep track of everything that you do to change your data. So you have an official data source. We've already cataloged that in the data biography last time. Take that official raw data set and make a copy of it, so that no matter what changes you make, you can always go back to your original raw copy and start over if you need to. The second thing is that each time you make any kind of a change, if you remove an outlier from your data or change a name or change the way a variable is coded, all the things we're going to be doing in the next steps of data cleaning, make sure that you write it down. Either write it down in the notes section of your Excel sheet or keep a separate Word document. I actually keep a separate Word document where I write down every single step that I make. And this is really important if you're going to be cleaning data in Excel and or Tableau. If you're using a programming language, then you can save the actual code that you write, and that's called reproducible research. So you can go back and remember exactly what you did to your data. If you're working with your data in Excel or Tableau and you're making changes, those changes are not technically reproducible. You won't be able to go back and see where those changes were made. So it's really important that you get yourself a Word document or anything that works for you, an Evernote note, a Google Doc, a sticky on your MacBook, whatever works for you. Just make sure that you have something that you're writing down each place that you make a change. Okay, so let's get started in the nuts and bolts of cleaning up the data.